Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question? Oh, my baby's crying. Go
Hey,
ahead.
Ben, it's Bryce.
Bryce, what's happening, dude?
Well, I think that he definitely did have a strong second half in the closing. Like the first half, it was kind of like up and down. I definitely do believe he needs just some debate training. I mean, he's kind of getting a little better, but not as sharp enough, especially the way things are. I like the answer he gave about Israel-Palestine. That was a very good answer. There's some things he has to work on. In terms of the issues, it wasn't really a lot brought up. It was kind of like back and forth. And, I mean, they talked about some things, but it didn't really, I don't know, it felt kind of off somewhat. But I think that he did a decent job, but he obviously could have done better. I mean, what happens in New York, though, and what do you guys think?
Yeah.
I don't even know this, but
Yeah, no, I really the Palestine, right, on Palestine, that's going to stand out to me as one of the shining realities of this election. That the Jewish the son of a Jewish immigrant, the Jewish son, Bernie Sanders, it has the most reasonable and nuanced and the most sensitive to the human rights violations of that's been perpetrated on Palestine. It's just amazing to me that he would be the one that has this position, because you would think that a person of Jewish descent, a Jewish American, would absolutely be 100% pro-Israel. And he's saying, yes, I'm 100% pro-Israel, but I'm also not blind to the realities of Netanyahu. Netanyahu is not always right, and you wouldn't believe that this would be coming from Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton is the AIPAC far-right Netanyahu supporter. Go ahead.
Believe it or not, what I think he should have done is, by being pro-Israel, you're not going to gain anything, but there's a lot that you can gain by just going ahead and going against the grain all the way. Like, it's not really going to hurt you that bad. The Israel lobby doesn't mean anything because you don't take their money, right? They're already going to be either for a Republican or a neoliberal in general. So this might have been a time to just, discuss the elephant in the room, that what we have is an illegal occupation that is going on, and that is the root cause for all of this conflict. And so unless we address that, the violence and, the bombs and all this, none of that stuff will be happening.
You do realize what you just said is so controversial in American politics that you can be and you're not worried about being blackballed, but that one sentence, even though it's a objective reality, right? That one sentence is so damning in American politics, and that's why I think it stands out so much more than that Bernie Sanders is the one to address this issue. And I guess that makes sense, right? If you think about it, who better to address this issue about the hypocrisy of American politics as it pertains to Israel than a Jewish American, than Bernie Sanders? What do you think, Anoa? And then we're going to grab this call.
I think that I think that he potentially can be a bridge on this issue. I mean, I think this is one of several issues. I think that he's a good bridge between, different viewpoints because of his unique position. There are quite a few, actually, Jewish Americans, people who are rabbis, other members of the faith, who do hold similar beliefs in terms of the Israeli occupation and how Palestinians are treated, right? I do feel though that it's more so that he has this humanist grounding in philosophy that is an undercurrent for everything that he talks about. Like, everyone's like, oh, well, he's white, or he doesn't really have black people on his staff, so how could he actually talk about these things? He has this just basic humanist philosophy that he believes in, people's right to live and be happy, right? That's oversimplified, but that's what the basic gist of it is. So I think that helps him translate and step back and see that yes, I mean, how can you look at what happens? How can you look at what's happening in Gaza? How can you look at what's happening? How can you look at that and look at the history too and not, feel something for people, You know, there are still. I remember writing a paper in college. You know, there were old women when the houses were bulldozed, when they started doing the settlements, the illegal settlements, right? When there are old women who still had the keys to the house that no longer exists. Like, how can you think that this is okay when people are having everything taken from them?
Because
you know,
society that looks at, we live in a society that's based on politicians, political leaders, making their opponents less than human, and it's demagoguery. It's old as time, and it has never gone anywhere. And you see this, you know, you have a lot of people who don't view, and it goes both ways, right? You do have those on the opposite side who view Israel as dogs and people who don't have a right to exist, and then you have Israelis who look at Palestinians as dogs, as people who don't have any right to exist. And it's a classic case of demagoguery for political power and to maintain their status quo. And that's how you look at people who are in great despair and have absolutely no regard for it. But as it pertains to our American political system, it's like we allow this, and we haven't. I mean, let's name a politician who has come with this type of position, just bold. I mean, you said it. He's a bridge, and I don't think anybody else could do it except for someone of Jewish descent, right? I don't think anyone else could get away with it, because everyone else would be called anti-Semitic, and even Bernie Sanders has been called anti-Semitic.
He gets called this week alone, right? We just saw today that, you know, they just announced that they hired a new Jewish outreach director, and just today she's suspended. You know, after 2 days, she's suspended because of first there were accusations that she was part of the boycott, divestment, you know, movement, and now it was a post. Basically, she wrote a Facebook post supposedly about Netanyahu, and was very strongly worded. And so, I mean, but the thing is, I think we've talked about it, you know, that type of stuff, like getting caught up in that type of stuff, people policing his campaign from the outside. Yeah. These are people who are not going to support you at all. You know, like, you know, American, you know, Jewish lobbyists, whoever, they have no intention on supporting him, right? The fact that AIPAC, you know, responded the way he did by refusing his request to do the video of his speech, when they've allowed people like, you know, Romney to do it previously, right? Like, you allow someone like Donald Trump, who everyone is comparing to being a fascist these days, when Donald Trump is, you know, invited and engaged and respected in your midst. Like, there's just so much going on right here. So, like Nick was saying, you don't even need to compete for that vote over there, because you're not going to get it. Like, if you want to talk about like not competing for certain votes, that's a voting block you don't even compete for, because you're not going to get it. You know, moderate who, you know, see the situation, you know, who can acknowledge that, you know, a two-state solution is the way to go, who acknowledge that, you know, there is a human rights crisis happening right now. I mean, no other country, ally or not, is allowed to disregard the United Nations the way Israel does. That's just plain and simple.
I said there comes a point you have to actually support your people. Like, when you have somebody working for you and they're under attack, you don't need to throw them under the bus because they're under attack. The people that are attacking them, and by proxy you, they're not going to vote for you anyway. If they said something wrong, rephrase their statement, remake the point, put it out there again, and double down. You don't need to distance yourself from somebody just because
I lost you, Nick.
They're under.
The audio fell apart.
Yeah, but I think Nick's point, from a little bit I heard, that, you know, and I think JP might have made this mention earlier in our chat, that, you know, when you have someone who is on your team, right, you clearly hired them for a reason.
Yeah.
You don't just, you know, toss them out because somebody said, oh, I don't like what that person said. Like, that's the same thing with, you know, the comments that I'm not going to repeat from yesterday.
How it works. Oh God, yeah. Well, that one. Okay, we'll talk about that one another time. With regard to the person, his staffer that he threw under the bus, or whoever made the decision, I'm sure it probably ultimately came from him. Here's how it works, right? People who want to see you fail are the ones who are going to point out some feigned outrage. And that's what they did with this post. She called him an asshole some years ago, and now all of a sudden she has to, you know, be held accountable for it 5 years later or 2 years later, whatever the case may be, right? And so
But
they
he is.
right, yeah, right. So I mean, and then at what point can we not say that about elected officials, right? That I mean,
Well, this is the same
you know,
person that openly
let me
disrespected the president.
exactly. But here's the play, right? And this is what I think I heard Nick saying too. Those people aren't going to support you. Those people are trying to destroy you. And as soon as he suspended that young lady, and I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, but as soon as he suspended her, articles went out saying that Bernie Sanders, if Bernie Sanders is really pro-Palestine, then he should not have fired or suspended his Israel outreach. And then this article has been spread in the Hillary Clinton supporter camp as proof that he's not as good as he said he is. So it's like you're feeding. This is something my dad always taught me. He was like, you can pacify an alligator all you want. You'll be the last one they eat. You can never give way to people who are doing things just to undermine your progress. Let's get this number from 404, and then we're going to get out of here. 404, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?